Light, bright, and cheerful.
Light, bright, and cheerful.
It's some of the most familiar of all early 18th century music.
It's some of the most familiar of all early 18th century music.
It's been featured in uncounted films and television commercials.
It's been featured in uncounted films, television commercials.
But what is it, and why does it sound that way?
But what is it? And why does it sound? Why it sounded that way? Why does it sound that way?
This is the opening of Spring from the Four Seasons
This is the opening of Spring in the Four Seasons
by Italian composer Antonio Vivaldi.
by Italian composer Antonio Vivaldi.
The Four Seasons are famous in part because they're a delight to the ear.
The Four Seasons are famous in part because they are what? Delight. They are a delight to the ear. Delight to the ear.
However, even more notable is the fact that they have stories to tell.
But however, even more notable is that they have stories to tell.
At the time of their publication in Amsterdam in
At the time of their publication in Amsterdam,
1725, they were accompanied by poems describing exactly what feature of that season Vivaldi intended to capture in musical terms. In providing specific plot content for insight, they were accompanied by poems at the time of their publication in Amsterdam in 1725. They were accompanied by poems describing exactly what
they were accompanied by poems describe exactly
feature of that season Vivaldi intended to capture in musical terms.
What feature of the content Vivaldi intended to capture in musical terms. What feature of that season Vivaldi intended to feature in musical terms.
In providing specific plot content for instrumental music.
In providing specific plot content for specific music, for musical instrument,
Vivaldi
for instrumental music,
was generations ahead of his time.
Vivaldi was generations ahead of his time. Generations ahead of this time.
If one were to read the poems simultaneously to hearing the music,
to hear simultaneously read the poems to hearing the music,
one would find the poetic scenes synchronizing nicely with the musical imagery.
One will find the poetic scenes synchronizing nicely with the poetic imagery.
We are told that the birds welcome spring with happy song.
We are told that the birds welcome spring with the happy songs. Welcome spring with happy song.
And here they are doing exactly that. Soon, however, a thunderstorm breaks out. Not only is there musical thunder and lightning, there are also more birds.
Not only is there musical thunder and lightning, there are also more birds.
Wet, frightened, and unhappy.
Well, frightened and unhappy.
In summer, the turtle dove sings her name, Tortorella, in Italian.
In summer, the turtle dove sings her name, Tortorella, in Italian.
Before a hailstorm flattens the fields.
Flattens the fields. The turtle dove. Turtle dove. Sings her name, Tortorella. Diminutive of tortora. Tortorella. What the?
갑자기 강해진 거예요?
아니?
뭐야?
What's this? Huh? Tortorella.
Autumn brings eager hunters dashing out in pursuit of their prey.
Autumn brings eager hunters dashing out in pursuit of their prey.
The winter concerto begins with teeth chattering in the cold.
The winter concerto begins with teeth chattering in the cold. Teeth chattering in the cold. Teeth chattering in the cold. Oh man. Teeth chattering in the cold. The winter concerto begins with teeth chattering in the cold. Teeth chatter? Teeth chattering in the cold.
Before one takes refuge by a crackling fire.
Before one takes refuge by a crackling fire. Before one takes refuge by a crackling fire. Crisp skin of dry sharp sound. Crackling of a crackling fire.
Then it's back out into the storm, where
Then it's back out into the storm,
there'll be slips and falls on the ice.
where there will be slips and falls on the ice. Slips and falls on the ice.
In these first weeks of winter, the old
In these first weeks of winter,
year is coming to a close, and so does. In these first weeks of winter, the old year is coming to a close.
what coming to a close? The old year is coming to a close. The old year is coming to a close.
And so does Vivaldi's musical exploration of the seasons.
So does Vivaldi's musical exploration of the seasons.
Not until the early 19th century would such expressive instrumental program music, as it was known,
Not until the early 19th century, such what?
become popular. Progressive instrumental program music, as it was known, become Not until the early 19th century would such expressive instrumental program music, as it was known, become popular.
Not until the early 19th century was such expressive piece of music as it is known.
Such expressive instrumental program music, as it was known, become popular. By then, larger, more varied ensembles were the rule.
By then, larger, more varied ensembles were the rule. By then, larger, more varied ensembles were the rule.
With woodwinds, brass, and percussion to help tell the tale.
with woodwinds, brass, and percussion to help tell the tale.
But Vivaldi pulled it off with just one violin.
But Vivaldi just pulled it off with just one violin. Pulled it off. Five strikings and pull off one of the Atom's biggest upsets. Pull off. Pull off a surprise. We pulled it off, just one, and pulled it off with just one violin,
Strings and a harpsichord.
strings, and harpsichord.
Unlike his contemporary Bach,
Unlike his contemporary Bach,
Vivaldi wasn't much interested in complicated fugues.
Vivaldi was much interested in complicated fugues. Organ fugue.
Fugue. He preferred to offer readily accessible entertainment to his
People preferred to offer
complicated fugues. He preferred to offer readily accessible entertainment to his
entertainment
listeners,
to his listeners.
with melodies that pop back up later in a piece.
With the melodies that pop back up later in a piece,
To remind us of where we've been.
to remind us where we have been. To remind us where we've been.
So the first movement of the Spring Concerto begins with a theme for
So the first movement of the Spring Concerto begins with the theme
spring, and it ends with it too,
and ends with it too.
slightly varied from when it was last heard.
Slightly varied from one that was last heard. From
It was an inspired way to attract listeners,
it was an inspired way to attract listeners.
and
And
Vivaldi,
Vivaldi,
considered one of the most electrifying violinists of the early 18th century,
considered one of the most electrifying violinists of the early 18th century. Electrifying violinists. Electrifying.
understood the value of attracting audiences. Such value of attracting violinists of the early 18th century understood the value of attracting audiences.
Understood the value of attracting audiences.
Such concerts might feature himself as the star violinist.
Such concerts might feature himself as a star violinist.
Others presented the young musicians of the Pietà.
Others presented the young musicians as young musicians of the Pietà.
A Venetian girls' school,
A Venetian girls' school,
where Vivaldi was director of music.
where Vivaldi was director of music.
A Venetian girls' school, where Vivaldi was director of concerts might feature himself as the star violinist. Others presented the young musicians of the Pietà, a Venetian girls' school, where Vivaldi was director of music. Most of the students were orphans. Music
Most of the students were orphans.
training was intended not only as social skills suitable for young ladies,
Music was intended not only for social, intended not only as social skills, suitable for young ladies,
but also as potential careers,
but also as potential careers.
For those who might fail to make good marriages.
For those who might fail to make good marriages.
Even in the composer's own time,
Even in the composer's even in the composer's own time.
Vivaldi's music served as diversion for all, not
Vivaldi's music served as a diversion for all,
just for the wealthy aristocrats.
not just for wealthy aristocrats.
300 years later, it's an approach that still works.
300 years later, it's an approach that still works. It's an approach that still works.
And Vivaldi's music still sounds like trotting horses on the move.
And Vivaldi's music still sounds as trotting horses on the move. Trotting horses on the move. Trot, it runs at the slowest speed using short steps in which the front leg and the back leg on the opposite side move together. Trotting on the move. Huh.